Have you ever noticed how some people drain the room long before they open their mouths? It's as though they've arrived carrying a small weather system, a gathering storm of tension, fear, or frantic grasping, and you can feel it before a single word is spoken. We are, after all, exquisitely sensitive creatures, far subtler than we pretend. We sense things we don't admit to sensing. We feel the vibrations of another's mind, just as surely as we feel a change in the wind. And so today, let us speak of 5 kinds of people who quietly pull the plug on your energy, not because they are evil or malicious, but because they, like all of us, are lost in certain illusions. They drain you only because they are drained themselves. They disturb your peace because they have none of their own. They take from you because they cannot yet find what they seek within. But we must explore this not with judgment, but with curiosity, not with condemnation, but with compassion. For, you see, the great secret is that every toxic person is merely one form of the human ego trying desperately to stay afloat. And if we look closely, we may recognize shades of them within ourselves. Let us begin with a little story. Imagine you are sitting beside a pond on a quiet morning. The surface is still, perfectly still, like a sheet of polished glass reflecting the sky. Then someone comes along, picking up stones, not because they wish to admire them, but because they feel compelled to throw them, one stone after another, without rest. The water ripples, shudders, breaks open, and you, sitting peacefully on the bank, find your serenity continually interrupted. Most people never realize they are throwing stones. They believe the pond was already troubled. So the first kind of person who drains your energy is the perpetual storm, the one who carries a swirling chaos inside and must constantly toss it into the world just to feel the relief of movement. Their stories are endless, their grievances inexhaustible. They do not speak to explore, they speak to offload. And if you try to help them, you only become a larger rock into which they can pour their restlessness. But here is the interesting thing. The perpetual storm is convinced that life happens to them. They are the eternal victim of an uncaring universe. They do not yet realize that the turbulence originates within. Now, a storm is not malicious. It simply is. But if you walk directly into it without an umbrella, you will get drenched. If you live with it, you will eventually forget what clear skies look like. So the question is not, how do I change the storm? The question is, why am I choosing to stand in the rain? The second kind of energy drainer is the collector of masks, the one who has spent so long pretending that the pretense has become their identity. They drain you not by chaos but by emptiness, for speaking with them is like trying to catch the reflection of the moon in broken glass. These people do not show you themselves. They show you who they think you want them to be. And after a time, you feel strangely exhausted, because to maintain harmony with them, you must adjust your own face as well. And 2 masks meeting in conversation is the most tiring thing in the world. Why is it so tiring? Because authenticity is effortless. Pretension is work. You spend energy trying to feel what they actually mean. You spend energy sensing the words beneath their words. And most of all, you spend energy trying to reassure them that their mask is working, which is precisely the reassurance they crave. But a mask can never be truly satisfied, because it is always afraid of being removed. Now, the third energy drainer is the keeper of guilt. This one drains you not with storms and not with masks, but with the subtle art of emotional taxation. They trade in guilt the way others trade in coins, small comments, faint sighs, insinuations, all designed to make you responsible for their feelings. After all I've done for you, I just thought you'd care enough to. I guess I'm just not important. These phrases are not spoken, they are cast like fishing lines, hoping to catch a bit of your energy, your attention, your sense of obligation. And the tragedy is that the keeper of guilt has no idea they are doing it. They are simply repeating the emotional currency they were taught. But you feel it. You feel the tug. And slowly, subtly, you begin to shape your life around avoiding their disappointment. Which is a curious thing, because guilt is the most peculiar of all emotions. It achieves nothing, it solves nothing, and it nourishes no one. It is a form of spiritual quicksand. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink. Now, before we continue, it is important to remember, we are not speaking of bad people. We are speaking of unconscious patterns, patterns we all fall into at one time or another. And if we observe them gently, without judgment, we may discover a way to relate to the world without being slowly emptied by it. For the fourth kind of person who quietly drains your energy is subtler still. They do not rage like storms. They do not hide behind masks, nor do they wield guilt as currency. No, this one appears entirely harmless, even endearing. They are the endless vacuum, the person who cannot sit with their own emptiness. And so they feed on your presence, your attention, your emotional labor, the way a thirsty plant turns toward any drop of moisture. You may have met them in the form of the friend who just needs a little comfort, but always needs a little more. The colleague who seeks reassurance for every choice. The companion who becomes restless, even distressed, when you are not continually available. They do not intend to consume your energy. In fact, they feel grateful for it, but like a cracked vessel, whatever you pour into them simply leaks out. Here lies the paradox. You cannot fill what refuses to hold. Every time you offer them clarity, they return with a new confusion. Every time you lend them strength, they come back weaker. Every time you give them support, they lean further, until you find yourself holding up the entire weight of another human being. And gradually, wonderfully, catastrophically, you become exhausted. Now, the endless vacuum is not unkind. They are simply terrified of the silence within themselves. Silence, for them, is not peace. It is a vast, echoing emptiness they've spent their entire life trying to outrun. They cannot hear their own thoughts without wanting to drown them in someone else's voice. And so, inadvertently, they try to live through you. But life cannot be lived by proxy, and no one can breathe for another soul. Which brings us to the fifth and final type, the most deceptively exhausting of all, the self-appointed fixer. At first glance, this person seems the opposite of toxic. They want to help you, guide you, improve you, correct you, elevate you into some imagined state of perfection. But their help always comes with a subtle aftertaste, the feeling that you are a project rather than a person. The fixer is convinced they know how the universe should unfold, and they will offer you endless advice, suggestions, instructions, even unsolicited spiritual guidance, all in the name of goodwill. But beneath their benevolence lies a deep, unspoken fear. They cannot allow life to be what it is. And so, when you are in their presence, you slowly begin to feel that nothing you do is quite right. Your choices need adjusting. Your emotions need managing. Your way of being needs improvement. They drain your energy not by demanding too much, but by convincing you that you are not enough. Now, there is a most curious thing about the fixer. They believe they are helping you because they cannot help themselves. Their entire identity is built upon the illusion that if they stop fixing the world, everything will fall apart, including them. They are the tired parent of the universe, forever mending, correcting, and anticipating problems that were never theirs to solve. And yet, what happens when you spend your life trying to fix everyone? You forget how to simply love them. For love is not a correction. Love is an embrace of what already is. Now, you may be wondering, what do these 5 types have in common? The storm, the mask, the guiltkeeper, the vacuum, the fixer, what is the thread that ties them? It is this. They all resist reality. Each, in their own way, is at war with what is. The storm lashes out because it has not yet made peace with its own turbulence. The mask fears the truth of its own being. The guiltkeeper resists responsibility for their inner world. The vacuum resists the solitude of their own presence. The fixer resists the unfolding of life itself. And every act of resistance consumes energy. Their resistance drains them, and so, to be near them, it drains you. This is not mystical. It is simply human. Energy leaks where the psyche struggles against the truth. But here is the deeper question. Why do you feel drained by them? Why do you lose energy in their presence? After all, your energy is not a fragile treasure easily stolen. It flows from the same source that births stars and dissolves galaxies. So why do certain people seem to pull the plug? Because, and listen closely, you have joined their resistance without realizing it. You resist the storm by trying to calm it. You resist the mask by trying to see behind it. You resist the guiltkeeper by trying to appease them. You resist the vacuum by trying to fill them. You resist the fixer by trying to defend yourself. And the moment you resist, you too become drained. 2 egos pushing against each other is the most exhausting sport in the world. But there is another way, a way as old and simple as breathing. You do not need to fight these people. You do not need to fix them. You do not need to abandon them. You do not need to judge them. You simply need to stop matching their resistance. You may allow the storm to storm without stepping inside it. You may allow the mask to remain a mask without trying to tear it away. You may allow the guilt-keeper to sigh and moan without responding with guilt. You may allow the vacuum to be empty without trying to fill it. And you may allow the fixer to advise without permitting their advice to define you. You step out of the game. You take off the gloves. You refuse the invitation to wrestle. And something miraculous happens. You remain whole. You remain clear. You remain untouched. And the person who once drained you becomes simply another flow of life, no more threatening than a wave returning to the sea. When you stop resisting, you stop leaking. And when you stop leaking, you begin to see clearly not only the nature of others, but the nature of yourself. For it is one thing to identify toxic patterns in the world around you. It is quite another to see how those patterns mirror the hidden corners of your own psyche. Consider the storm. Have you never felt, in some quiet hour, the urge to throw your own inner stones at the stillness of the world? To stir something up simply because you feared what would happen if everything became calm? Or the mask, have you never smiled when you did not feel like smiling, agreed when you did not agree, performed an emotion instead of living it, and afterward felt strangely hollow? We all play roles. It becomes toxic only when we forget they are roles. And what of guilt? Have you never used it, subtly or not, as a way of pulling someone closer? Or emptiness, have you truly embraced solitude? Or do you occasionally feel that same tug toward others, hoping their presence will drown out the restless echo of your own mind? And yes, the fixer. Surely you have known the impulse to edit another person's life as though it were a manuscript in need of your red pen. Perhaps you believed quite sincerely that you were helping. So you see, these people drain us only because they stir something familiar in us. The irritation you feel is not a condemnation, it is a signal, a quiet whisper from life saying, here is something you still resist within yourself. Now, let us look more deeply. When you sit with a storm and feel your energy ebbing, what is actually happening? You are trying subtly, unconsciously to hold their chaos, to calm them, to make them feel better, to restore peace. But whose peace are you restoring? Theirs? Or your own discomfort in the presence of turbulence? You see, your energy drains not because they are chaotic, but because you are trying to change the nature of a phenomenon that simply needs space to move. A storm eventually dissolves. It does not require an audience. And the person wearing a mask, why do you feel tired in their presence? Because you are trying to decode them, to peer behind the curtain, to intuit the true face behind the performance. But masks fall away on their own in the presence of acceptance far more quickly than they do under scrutiny. Relax your need to see behind it. And suddenly, you no longer feel drained. You might even smile, for the dance of the mask becomes oddly beautiful when you stop taking it seriously. The guilt-keeper, this one confounds many. You feel drained because you are negotiating with an emotion that was never yours in the first place. You are holding the weight of an expectation that does not belong to you. But if you do not pick up the guilt when it is offered, the entire dynamic dissolves like mist in sunlight. The vacuum, yes, this one pulls at the heartstrings. But your exhaustion comes from the belief that you must fill them, that you must be the oxygen they breathe. The moment you realize that emptiness is not a problem to be solved, but a space to be understood, you stop pouring yourself out. You allow their emptiness to be their own. And suddenly, the relationship becomes spacious rather than consuming. And the fixer, they drain you not because they seek to improve you, but because you feel compelled to justify your existence in their presence. The moment you let go of the need to defend your way of being, the entire interaction becomes surprisingly light. You see, you do not have to resist any of these people. You only have to stop resisting yourself. Now, let us travel deeper still. People drain your energy not by who they are, but by how tightly you cling to who you think you must be around them. A storm appears, and you believe you must be calm. A mask appears, and you believe you must be perceptive. A guilt-keeper appears, and you believe you must be responsible. A vacuum appears, and you believe you must be supportive. A fixer appears, and you believe you must be justified. The draining, you see, is in the performance, not in the other person. Drop the performance gently, without theatrics, and you become free. This is the great joke of the universe. Your energy is stolen only when you agree to hand it over. But let us not make an enemy of these people. That would only create another resistance. Rather, let us watch them the way one watches waves rising and falling at the beach. They are part of the landscape of human consciousness. acting out their dramas, their fears, their illusions. And somewhere, in some chapter of your life, you too have been a storm, a mask, a keeper of guilt, an endless vacuum, or a tireless fixer. You are not above them. You simply see more clearly now. So what do? Nothing dramatic, nothing violent, nothing extreme. You simply step out of the game. And by stepping out, you show them quietly, without preaching that another way of being is possible. You become the still pond. And when people throw their stones, they fall harmlessly into your depths without disturbing your peace. For peace is not a thing you protect. Peace is something you become. And in becoming it, you no longer fear losing it. But perhaps you wonder, is it cold to detach from these people? Is it unkind to stop engaging in their familiar patterns? Not at all. For detachment is not withdrawal of love, it is withdrawal of illusion. To love someone is to allow them to be who they are, without taking their storms, masks, guilt, emptiness, or compulsions into your own bloodstream. When you stop rescuing others from themselves, something extraordinary happens. You give them back the dignity of their own journey. If you shield them from every wave, they never learn to swim. If you carry their burdens, they never discover their strength. If you fix their problems, they never taste their own wisdom. Your presence becomes a mirror, not a crutch. And in that mirror, they may finally recognize themselves. Now, let us wander a little further down this winding path, for something even subtler is waiting just around the bend. When you stop allowing these patterns to drain you, you discover a most unexpected freedom. You no longer need people to behave differently in order to be at peace. This is liberation. Imagine standing in the center of a busy marketplace. Voices rising, merchants calling out, children laughing, someone arguing about the price of tea, someone else crying, another singing the whole glorious, chaotic symphony of human life. And right there, in the center of it all, you stand still. The noise continues, but your mind does not contract around it. The world is allowed to be the world, and you are allowed to be you. This is what it means to be undrainable. For most of us, peace is conditional, as fragile as a soap bubble. We say, I will be at peace when people stop bothering me, when life stops upsetting me, when everyone behaves sensibly. But this is asking the ocean to stop making waves so that you may meditate on the shore. It will never happen. The waves are the nature of the ocean. Human patterns are the nature of humanity. And so the true serenity is not found by quieting the world, but by discovering the quiet center within yourself, the place that is untouched by the winds and tides of circumstance. Now, let us look at these 5 figures again, not as threats, but as teachers. The storm teaches you non-reactivity. To sit with another's chaos without trying to absorb it or fix it is one of the highest forms of compassion. The mask teaches you authenticity. By observing the exhaustion of pretending, you begin to value the simple ease of being seen as you are. The Guiltkeeper teaches you boundaries, not the hardened walls of defense, but the soft, clear knowing of where you end and another begins. The endless vacuum teaches you sovereignty, the ability to remain whole even when someone leans on you. The Fixer teaches you trust in the unfolding, for their endless tinkering shows you the futility of controlling life. But let us be honest, when these people appear, most of us do not feel gratitude. We feel irritation, drain, fatigue, a subtle desire to flee. This is natural. It is simply the ego's instinctive tightening. But if, instead of tightening, you soften, if you breathe, expand your awareness, and observe the inner movement, you discover something astonishing. The draining never came from them. It always came from your contraction. You tighten around their storm. You tense around their mask. You brace against their guilt. You collapse into their emptiness. You defend against their corrections. Your energy is not taken. It is held clenched inside the fist of resistance. Open the fist, and the exhaustion dissolves. Now, let us take this deeper, for the real heart of the matter is not about other people at all. It is about the illusion of control. Every type of person who drains you, every form of toxicity, every exhausting dynamic, all of them hinge upon a simple misunderstanding. You believe somewhere within you that you must control the experience. Control the mood. Control the outcome. Control the emotional atmosphere. Control the other person's reaction. Control how you are perceived. Control the unfolding of events. This, my friend, is the heaviest burden in the world, and it is utterly unnecessary. No matter how noble your intentions, life simply does not bend to the will of personal preference. The river flows where it flows. The tide comes when it comes. And the people in your life, oh, they are as unpredictable as the weather, as wild as birds, as mysterious as waves forming far out at sea. So what happens when you finally, mercifully, stop trying to control them? Quite simply, you stop being drained. The storm may rage, but you no longer feel responsible for calming it. The mask may perform, but you no longer feel compelled to unveil it. The guiltkeeper may cast their nets, but you no longer swim into them. The vacuum may thirst, but you no longer attempt to quench it entirely. The fixer may advise, but you no longer shrink under their scrutiny. And in that moment of release, of letting others be as they are, you taste a rare and exquisite freedom. You realize that your energy was never something fragile that needed guarding. It is a fountain, an ever-flowing spring. It is drained only when you try to dam it up with resistance. Let the water flow, and it replenishes itself. Now, let us return to the marketplace, that bustling expression of human aliveness. Imagine walking through it again, people swirling all around, each absorbed in their own dramas, their own joys, their own anxieties. And instead of shrinking or bracing or calculating how to respond, you simply move through it with a soft, steady awareness. No resistance, no tightness, no effort. And in that effortless openness, no one can take anything from you, for you are not clinging to anything in the first place. That is the marvelous paradox. When you loosen your grip, nothing can be taken. When you stop resisting, nothing drains you. When you stop managing others, you begin to meet them. In that space, relationships transform. Conversations soften. Expectations fall away. Love, real love, not the anxious bargaining of the ego, becomes possible. And as you learn to be with people as they are, storms, masks, guilt, emptiness, compulsions, and all something deep inside you relaxes. You discover you do not need protection. You need only presence. Presence this simple. Spacious awareness is the great purifier. It is not a shield, nor a strategy, nor a technique. It is not something you perform. It is what remains when the performances end. It is the effortless clarity that appears when you stop trying to manage the world. And in presence, something extraordinary happens. Those who once drained you begin to reveal themselves not as burdens, but as expressions of a deeper human longing. A longing to be seen, to be accepted, to be allowed to exist without being edited. The storm reveals its longing for calm. The mask reveals its longing for authenticity. The guiltkeeper reveals a longing to matter. The vacuum reveals a longing for connection. The fixer reveals a longing for safety in a changing world. But you cannot give them these things. Not directly. Not by force. Not by sacrificing your own serenity. You give them these gifts only through your being. When you are calm, the storm remembers calmness exists. When you are authentic, the mask begins to feel safe enough to crack. When you are sovereign, the guiltkeeper feels their hooks losing traction. When you are whole, the vacuum begins to notice its own capacity. When you trust the flow of life, the fixer wonders whether the river was never broken to begin with. Do you see? Your presence becomes a tuning fork, not a command, not an influence, simply a vibrational reminder of another way. And sometimes, in your presence, people rise to their highest selves. Sometimes they soften. Sometimes they begin to shed old skins, old stories, old habits of clinging. But, and this is essential, sometimes they do not. And that too is life. You are not here to sculpt others into more convenient shapes. You are not here to prune the wildness from the garden of humanity. You are here to be, to live, to participate in the dance without choreographing it. And when someone in your life remains deeply entrenched in their pattern, when they continue despite your clarity to draw from you in ways that leave you diminished, there is a simple, compassionate option. You may walk away, not in anger, not in judgment, not in self-righteousness. You walk away the way a tide retreats quietly, naturally, without ceremony, because the season has changed, and you are no longer required in that particular story. Leaving someone's orbit is not a failure. It is a recognition that your paths, for now, part in different directions. And if you leave without resentment, you leave a door open. Life may bring you together again in a new form, in a new rhythm, when both of you are ready. But whether you stay or go, whether you engage or withdraw, the deeper truth remains. You cannot be drained when you are rooted in yourself. For who is the you we speak of? Not the anxious collection of ideas and memories you call the ego. That creature is drained by everything, a harsh word, a sideways glance, a shifting tone in someone's voice. No, the you I speak of is deeper, quieter, vaster. It is the awareness in which everything appears. It is the space through which life dances. It is the ocean in which all these waves, storms, masks, guilt, need, control, rise and fall. The ocean is never harmed by its waves. It does not resist them. It does not cling to them. It does not attempt to manage their behavior. It simply allows, and in that allowing, there is peace. Peace that cannot be drained. Peace that does not depend on the conduct of others. Peace that is not fragile, not conditional, not earned, only remembered. Let me leave you with a small image. Imagine again that still pond from the beginning. But this time, you are not seated beside it. You are the water, the stones that others toss their moods, their masks, their dramas send ripples. Yes, but only on the surface. Beneath the ripples, the depths remain undisturbed. So when you meet the storm, do not become the sky, be the lake. When you meet the mask, do not become the critic, be the mirror. When you meet the guiltkeeper, do not become the sinner, be the boundary. When you meet the vacuum, do not become the reservoir, be the clarity. When you meet the fixer, do not become the student, be the presence. And in doing so, your life becomes spacious. Your energy flows freely. Your heart remains open, yet unburdened. You love without losing yourself. You give without depletion. You walk through the world with a soft strength that no one can diminish. For the truth, the simple, exquisite truth is that nothing in this world has power over you unless you give it permission. And the moment you stop struggling, stop tightening, stop resisting life as it unfolds, you awaken to a peace that no person, no pattern, no drama can ever take from you. So let the world be the world. Let people be people. Let life be its magnificent, unpredictable self. And you be the stillness at the center of it all.